we have Gina Schaefer, and Gina owns the 11 Ace Hardware stores in the DC area. And Gina also has an unusual position of being on our board. She's on the CCA board and on the ACE board. So Gina is on 2 national board of directors of co-ops, and probably knows more about co-ops than probably anybody has. Wendy Scherer is the social media manager for Cabot Cheese, and certainly is well informed in Cabot Cheese. For those, I'm sure most people know, but are so active in the whole co-op community and do such a great job in so many aspects that we're proud to be involved with Cabot in so many ways. And our last, but certainly not, is Jessica Ross, who's the managing partner of Finn Partners, which is a public relations and communication company in DC area. And I was just talking with Jessica earlier, and they have grown from 200 people to 600 people in the last 2 to 3 years, and which is to slightly amazing growth, to put it mildly. So we're very happy to have all of you here. And I thought I would just first maybe ask the question, in today's political climate, does it change how you would think about communicating about co-ops?
Well, I'll take a stab at that. I think that today's political climate has us rethinking the way we communicate about everything. But I think that one of the most powerful things that you have as a cooperative community is the power of your stories. And Howard, I loved your vision of sort of the cooperative economy. And I think using those stories of community, which I think really resonate with influencers and elected officials. And you also have a very powerful story that can be told with the data of the cooperative economy. So I think that ensuring that you are part of the story, that you're mobilizing all of the many voices that are part of the cooperative economy is really critical. I think there is a lot of political support for cooperatives. I think that, as Howard said, the rub is really that people don't always understand or know when they are dealing with a cooperative, or really understand sort of the full benefits of the cooperative model. One of day in the life of a PR chick. I got an email last week, this very mysterious email from somebody in the Middle East, and said, I have a client who wants to come over, he's looking for some crisis communications. That's one of the things that I do. Can you have a meeting? So I said, sure. So a fellow came in, and it was, all very, sub rosa. He said, I represent a client who's sort of run afoul of the US media and the Trump administration. So we talked about our approach to crisis communications and our approach to thought leadership. And he said, as he was leaving, he said, well, is there anything else? What's the one thing that makes your company different? Why would I hire you? And I said, because we're the good guys. And that's what you are. I mean, when you unpack the 7 cooperative principles and you unpack all of the things that make cooperatives unique, it's that you are the good guys, and you're building community, and you're building good jobs, so jobs and local economies. I think those things resonate in the current political dialogue more than anything else, jobs in the economy. Sorry.
Wendy, have you seen any change, or how you would change things, in other words, in the political climate in your world?
Yes, I have. Actually, what's interesting is we don't talk politics at Cabot. I mean, we are selling cheese, and we do we're owned by 1,100 farm families. So it's not politics per se, but so much of our focus is about gratitude and reflecting the the values of our farmers and about volunteering and giving back. And that community feeling seems to be definitely a big groundswell now. People really want to do more and more in their communities, and we want to support that. So while it's not politics per se, it certainly shows the changes in our society, and we're trying to do more and more to help uplift that.
Yeah, and I think that's it. It's not so much political, is it the environment, is it changing? And Gina,
Well, I just as a side note, I used to think that everything on social media that got likes were babies and puppies until I became involved with Cabot, and it's cows, like thousands of likes on the cows. It's amazing. Similar experience, I think. We've realized over the years that, or the last couple in particular, that people really want to be connected with who they're buying things from. And this is how we continue to win, particularly against Amazon. And Howard, you mentioned the millennials. So many folks sort of discount the millennial generation for a lot of reasons. And we've realized that they're the ones that want to come to our classes and talk to us and fix stuff, even if they really have no idea what they're doing. So we're playing into that. Again, not really, it's the political climate, it's the local climate, I guess, more than anything. So that feels very different. It feels more like maybe when I was a kid growing up in a small town.
Right. Wendy, you position the Cabot as farmer-owned, and tell us about that.
So everything we do is about our farmers. Cabot is owned by 1,100 farm families in New England and upstate New York. And because we're farmer-owned, everything we do, first of all, 100% of the profits go back to the farmers. So everything we do is for them. We work for them. We appreciate them. And they're incorporated in everything that we do, from appearances to our marketing, to our recipes, to farm stories that come out every week, and like Gina said, about our cows, and we use their pictures all the time, and it's a really big deal. But the interweaving of our owners into every marketing piece that we do is just so integral to who we are. Right. It's everything.
And Jessica, you see a lot of different companies and media. Where do you see the opportunities are for co-ops to sort of tell their story today?
Sure. I think that there are a number of different opportunities. I don't know if anybody watched the terrific show that was on for a little while called Silicon Valley, but there was this very funny conference where every new CEO of every company got up and said, they explained their product or their service, and they said at the end, and we're making the world a better place. And, and I think that cooperatives really are, and I think that those opportunities are numerous. One is, and you talked about it, Howard, which is sort of storytelling and mobilizing, the voices of your community, because I think that people are looking for authenticity. I was listening to a funny story on NPR about these folks in Brooklyn who, were growing handlebar mustaches and butchering their own meat just to try and return to a world that you talked about, Gina, which is, how do I get back to a place that feels like community and authenticity? So I think using those very real stories is very powerful. And I think that the mediums that are really being used most effectively in marketing lend themselves very well to those stories and those sort of community voices. Video is really powerful. All stories are being told on social now. Nobody wants engagement with bots. They want a real and authentic community and real and authentic conversations. And then I do think that sort of telling the bigger cooperative story through the powerful data about the industry. I mean, your opening slide about the eight people in the world having as much wealth as half the rest of the world's population. I mean, that's one big story, but I think thinking about what are those interesting pieces of data that you can be sharing with your community. So I think that really plays into a lot of the sort of communications trends that we're seeing.
Gina, being on both boards, how does it change? Has it changed your view of how you communicate or how you think about co-ops?
I don't talk about anything else. I'd be in trouble. Has it changed? Yeah, so I opened my first Ace Hardware store here in Washington in 2003. And to be honest, I didn't know anything about co-ops at the time. I think my parents had been involved with co-ops in Ohio, but it was always, above my head. But I've changed a lot in the last 14 years. And certainly joining the boards, I feel an obligation every time I talk to somebody to talk, like I sneak it in. Like all of us have something that we want to sneak into a conversation, right? Like I just took this fancy trip or whatever. No, I want to tell you about a co-op. So I think it's become at the top of my rhetoric, and also with my employees. A lot of my team have no idea. And so the first thing we do when we have a new hire orientation, which is once a month, is start talking about co-ops and explain in very basic terms what the differences are. So I don't know if that answers your question, but absolutely, whether I was on those boards or not, just being a member owner of a co-op, I've talked about it a lot more.
And I guess for all three, where do you think the opportunities are if we look now and down the road for in media, in marketing, positioning, or what is the best way to take advantage of where we are right now?
I have something immediately I'm dying to say. Is one of the things that we started doing at Cabot is bringing co-ops together to do more work together. And we partner with other co-ops all the time. We have some wonderful friends in the co-op world and are always looking for more. But by putting together big packages of promotions and speaking to the world as a group, we think it's really helpful to spread the word. We're working on things like infographics and helping each other and sharing each other's content, constantly sharing each other's content, so that we're able to say, we are part of this, and now there's more to learn. And if more of us spread the same message, it just gets broader and people start to understand. So we see that as a huge opportunity. There's just so many of us.
Yeah, no, I think that's, I know you do also, you do great work in the volunteer program.
We do.
You want to just maybe, I don't know if everybody's aware what you do with that.
I would love to, but then I don't want to take away. So what we do is a program called Reward Volunteers, which is a website, rewardvolunteers.coop, of course, .coop. And you can log your volunteer hours. We're encouraging people to do it. And Cabot thanks volunteers for logging their hours. There's no fee. It's easy. It's super easy. And organizations can be rewarded if you log your hours for them and you're chosen. They can get grants that a lot of the co-op organizations are contributing to, which is really great, and some wonderful prizes like Divine Chocolate, which, of course, chocolate. But also individuals win prizes. So it's a really great way to spread the volunteering world. And if you volunteer and you post your hours, other people see it, and so it encourages and helps spread that movement. And we just really feel strongly about supporting and promoting the values that our farmers have in their own communities. Right. So it's become a really, really big movement for us.
Jessica?
And I would imagine that even if the stories aren't as robust or as large as yours, that all of any cooperative has stories like that they should be sharing. I mean, I know we work with all different kinds of organizations and companies, and corporations they set up a separate arm to do corporate social responsibility and make a big deal of demonstrating that they're giving back to communities, or they're giving to arts organizations, or they're giving back to their employees. But that's what you all as cooperatives do every day. So how do you do as good a job as some of those corporations in telling their stories of the processes and frameworks that they set up so they can be caught in the act of doing good, when these are the things that you're just doing every day? I really see that as a differentiator, and making sure that you're not shy about telling those stories, whether it's training and education that so many cooperatives do, to what you're doing to give back to the community, the kinds of jobs you're creating in communities. Those are just really powerful stories, and don't neglect to tell them.
That's a very good point. So ACE as a company is very, very modest. I actually tease the CEO about that all the time. I'm like, you need to brag a little. We just opened our 5,000th store about a month ago, and that's a big deal. I mean, we're local. Thank you, local independent business. I mean, I want to get back to the day where I hear that we're opening the 5,000th new pharmacy, independent pharmacy, or the 5,000th new bookstore, bike store, and so I do tell John all the time that we need to be less modest. And then my husband puts up with me for being very vocal about it. So if I have a friend who's talking to me about something they buy from Amazon, they unfortunately get a lecture from me. So I do think we have to be less modest, obviously not obnoxious about it, but then more vocal about what the alternatives are for purchasing and all the other host of services that we use every day as consumers.
Yeah, I always think Amazon is like the silent killer, because you don't pass the building. Walmart, everybody hisses because you pass the building and say, oh, they're taking away local jobs and taking away this. But the reality is Amazon is taking away everybody's business. And they're slowly but surely amassing themselves to take away a little bit of everything. And like you say, Gina, I think we have to be more vocal and participants with it.
Yep.
So we talked about millennials a little bit. Just, we have an internship program. We bring 9 interns in different divisions every year. And we just find having 19, 20-year-olds is like amazing. Just your thoughts on how to get more young people involved in our sector. They love it when they understand, but they don't know about us. And so how do we open that secret?
Well, I know in my business, every request for proposal or conversation we have with a company, an organization, a museum, a theater, the first question is, how do we get millennials to come, buy, go, shop? And I think one of the important things to remember is that it really isn't that monolithic group that we think of as millennials. I have millennial team members who are parents and have small children, and there are millennials who are, it's the sort of typical, more what we think of. I'll share another little story. I'm filled with stories today. We have mostly millennials as our staff and in our office, and we had a little retreat, and we had everybody write down what their goal for 2016 was, and I took a picture of it because it was, in my mind, sort of the quintessence of millennial thinking, which was, I want to spend more time on me. I need to really think about more work-life balance for me. And, and so the list went on of these, and I'm not dinging millennials here, but, that was the list, and that's what people wrote down in public. Nobody said that I want to work harder, I really want to move up in my job, or I'm committed to excellent client service. So this is a generation who's looking for, how do I do things that are important to me? And that can be community, and that can be giving back, but I think that's the lens. Right. So how do we make ourselves visible when we know that that's the sort of the going in proposition to any endeavor that I'm interested in? What does it do for me? This is the trophy generation, right?
Yeah, no, I think that's very accurate.
Yeah.
Gina?
I don't know if this will get at it, but the University of Wisconsin has a great retail program. It's a graduate program in retail studies, I guess. And I had a chance to interact with a bunch of the students there, and who were all, I guess, 18, 19, 20 years old. And they all thought that they had to leave there and work for Kohl's and Walmart and Home Depot. And they thought it was cool, I'm not cool, but they thought it was cool to sit with me and talk about how they could work for a local business and still make a really big impact. So I don't think people think of small and local or co-ops as a career builder or a bigger entity than just what they see as the local mom and pop. Right. So somehow, I haven't figured out how, but I feel like I need to infiltrate that program and let those students know that there's more out there than Kohl's and Applebee's.
Right. No, I think that's right.
Well, I think
Wendy?
part of that also reinforces what you were saying before, is that I think a lot of people don't understand the value of buying from a local store and don't understand the detriment of sometimes supporting some of the big organizations or thinking about what the community benefits are. So I think those tie in. I just don't think they know. Yeah. What I was going to say is when I think about some of these younger people and the marketing departments in a lot of the co-op organizations I work with, the lens doesn't necessarily match, and long pieces of copy and stories may not resonate with people who only have a 6-second attention span. So we just need to think a little bit differently if we want to talk to them and have them understand, because it's not that they're not willing to understand, they're just not willing to read a lot. So we just have to really think differently about how we talk to them if we want them to learn what we want to teach.
Right.
Yeah.
And you talked about infographics, and we talked about video. Those are really powerful for that millennial generation. And one of the other learnings, I think, as we've been navigating how to reach them, is that they're really looking for sort of curated and authentic experiences, and whether those are truly curated and authentic, we'll never know. But I think that plays into how we try and reach that demographic.
One final question, which is probably the most complex question, is that when we talk about co-ops, it's a general terminology. It means many things to many people, and it comes to so many different sectors. It's complex even with people within the co-op world. How do we talk about that, given that it's sort of one word that represents many things that are very different in different sectors? Can you talk about it? You need to talk about your story, or can you talk about it as an umbrella? I'm curious what...
Well, even you said it takes you a half an hour to
It
explain
does,
what we
yeah.
are. I don't know, I think I'll let the marketing folks
Yeah,
take a
yeah.
stab.
I think that one way that we're really trying hard to do that is by showing that we care about companies and organizations that are in a different sector. So by sharing electric co-op information and sharing retail while we're a farmer co-op and the different types and really talking about those and pulling them together, not just with some of the longer pieces in the infographics, but just by showing our allegiance and our connection to them, I think helps people see that it's a bigger world. Especially, I think credit unions is really hard for people to get the co-op connection. So we work really hard to try to pull those pieces together.
Yeah, I think, we're in a world that thinks in moments, as you say, and, what is that slingshot that can send that rock into people's consciousness? And, I think about, the recent debacle that Pepsi had with its ad that one can of Pepsi could sort of unite, a divided community. And I think that, to answer your question maybe in an oblique way, that the power of the cooperatives is that here are organizations and businesses that are actually intending to benefit the people who are using the services or purchasing the goods. And I think that's very different than the approach of a lot of companies. I mean, we live in a day where we are, whatever industry you look at, they're spending, millions or billions of dollars marketing products that aren't good for us, or drugs that maybe we don't need, or, clothes that are made in less than good circumstances, or fish that's fished by slave laborers. So, it does have the additional virtue of being true that you are organizations that are in the business of providing benefits for your customers, and that seems so obvious, but it isn't the case for so many others.
If there's a question from the audience, I'd be happy to take a question. If somebody has, yes, I see that.
It's for Jessica. Just kind of building off what you last said. In your experience, you look at some of these brands that are the most successful in terms of getting out their message, they reach the audience, and you talk about stories. What's the hook that really gets people to bite into that story what's the hook that gets people to bite into that story? Like you mentioned the Pepsi, it was obviously so divisive because it was so tactless. But what people obviously rallied around that. So for co-ops, how do they? Not looking for the Super Bowl commercial right now, but what's the hook that gets them in?
Yeah, I think, for a lot of different causes, we are seeing causes know that they have to align themselves with celebrities because people are looking for an entry point. They say, oh, that's a football player I know, or a singer I know, or somebody I know, so I can enter, that dialogue, and it becomes more meaningful to me. And I think that, short of the few celebrities of the cooperative world, because there are a couple, it is really, again, creating entry points with storytelling, entry points with members, and again, that's sort of that powerful content creation that gives people a place where they can, start to kind of relate to the brand, relate to the company, and again, without, multi-million-dollar marketing budgets and having Beyonce as your paid spokesperson, I do think it is going to be about storytelling and building those authentic relationships.
And just, I guess, yes, we have one. Terry?
So this is mostly for Gina, but I think, Wendy, you might have something to say about this. Ace Hardware is owned by its store owners. It's a it's a purchasing co-op. You train your employees about the nature of a cooperative. They are not the members, they are not the owners, they're certainly stakeholders in your stores. What difference does it make to them when you're done with the training that they're working for a co-op whose members are not of their ilk? Does it matter?
It does. I think that's a really great question. And we grapple with that because, first of all, it takes multiple training for it to really sink in for a lot of the folks that work with us, not because of who they are, but just because it's foreign to them. It's a new concept. We have, yes, I can't really answer it because I can't fix it, but we do have a profit-sharing company within our own business. So we use that as a way to explain the rising tides model or the shared services model. And then from there, we talk about other ways in the community that they can make an impact on their families' lives by being part of something, whether it be shopping at the local grocery co-op or being a part of the CSA, et cetera. So we can't quite get to this is how it benefits you as being an employee of Ace Hardware, but for my company at least, we bring in those elements to make a difference. Yeah. We do have employees ask all the time if they can become a member of ACE, and obviously the answer is no, and I have to explain that situation, but yeah.
Yeah, I would like to throw something in. It's interesting because everybody that I work with says they work for the farmers. I mean, that's how we all feel, and that's how it is. We work for the farmers, and everything we do is for them. But there is a benefit if you think about the communities and keeping vibrant communities, keeping these farmers in business and having their cows continue to produce and having them continue to sell their milk and to continue to make cheese, keeps those communities alive. I mean, the farming communities in New England and in upstate New York are a huge part of the economy. So it's really important to everybody who lives there that those businesses thrive.
Yeah, I agree. You know, I think one thing at CCA, we really promote the idea that it's all about keeping family businesses healthy and living, because I always say, if there weren't individual local companies, you'd have, you know, the same stores in Portland, Oregon and Portland, Maine, and who wants the same chains? You want the family businesses, and that's what co-ops do. And I think with ours, it does resonate right down to the, I would tell you, right down to the employee, because they tell the story to the customers. They tell the stories. The reason we can give you a good price is we're part of a 1,000-store buying company. That's why we can compete with Home Depot. And they also know they have products that are exclusive. They have services which are exclusive. So we tell the story right down to the employee, and we find it important.
Yeah. Speaking of telling the stories, it's so immersed in us that even like when my husband, who's a step removed, goes to the grocery store and is carrying his Cabot grocery bag, and somebody asks, he says, you know, Cabot is a co-op owned by 1,100 farm families in England and New York. And then you say, well, where'd you get that bag? And he says, you can have it. So it's kind of Ripley.
One person at a time, that's all it takes, one person at a time.
I think it is Ripley. Well, I want to thank our great panelists for a wonderful discussion on marketing. I couldn't ask for 3 better people. Thank you very much. I think we're taking a break now and come back at 3:30.